All right, Kim, we have a quorum here in the boardroom, and we're okay to start when you are ready.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and count out. Rory, are you ready? Okay, thank you. We'll count out with go live in 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to our special board meeting of Tahoe Truckee Unified School District on June 1st at 3:01. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call.
President Zurek,
Here.
Clerk Larson,
Here.
Board Member Driller, not here. Board Member Hennessy, not here. Board Member Levac.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other two board members will join us a little later. So are there any changes to the agenda, Superintendent?
No, Trustee Larson, there are no changes.
Any, can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So now we have public comment. This public comment is on no item that is on the agenda, so it's anything else that has to do with our purview, and we have two people who have signed up. So first one is Dr. Ann Sura.
Hi.
Ann, go for it.
Hi. Glasses help. So I'm here. Got it? Okay. I'm here today to question the ongoing district policies regarding our children, including masking, distancing, and specifically today about the contact tracing and quarantine policy of 14 days following a suspected contact with a positive test. Wondering if any of you know that the CDC revised their guidelines in February of this year to 7 days with a negative test after 5 days to mitigate the potential hardships of the longer quarantine. Wondering if you've all looked at the 18 months of published studies that we have from around the world on children and young adults, community and school transmission, and all of them that show that K through 12, there's almost zero transmission in schools. How about understanding that asymptomatic equals not sick, especially with a negative test? If you don't have enough viral load to be sick, you don't have enough viral load to transmit the virus. I would hope all of you know that the district vision states about your dedication to our children's future, and the first of the beliefs being students are the focus of all of our decisions. It's my belief that you have not fulfilled that vision or belief this year. Our children have lost an entire year of learning under your safety and mitigation measures, all of which have been shown to be minimally effective even at the height of this pandemic. Numerous studies have shown this. They're published in multiple medical journals from all around the world. My child, like many, does not do online learning well. There are reasons that parents like us don't homeschool. Besides the fact that my husband and I work full-time out of the house, our son does well in a structured setting in school, engaged actively with his teachers and fellow students. When he is in school, all of his teachers say that he is a good student, he is engaged, he's funny, and he's helpful. Online, he is none of that. We finally just got him caught up on his distance teaching assignments and emotionally stable, and with only 3 weeks left of school, I was forced to pull him out again for 2 full weeks due to the contact tracing and quarantine guidelines from a potential exposure, and your antiquated policies based upon a March 2020 mindset versus a June 2021 knowledge. Your safety and mitigation measures that result in children being kept out of school for a disease that's exceedingly rarely transmitted and are 36 times less likely to die from than a car accident is harming our children. With the June 2021 knowledge base, we know that COVID is less deadly than influenza for people under 40, and we never quarantined our children or mandated masks for the flu. Yes, of course, COVID has risks, but your strategy to mitigate COVID risks cannot have more risks than the disease itself for our children. Yes, you must ask yourselves, are you safety-first disease mitigation strategies causing more harm than the actual disease to our children? Are your disease mitigation strategies even effective? I'm not intending to discredit anyone's opinion, but when I look at the actual data, the most crystal clear example to me of a mistake is thinking that keeping our kids out of school, for example, quarantining an asymptomatic child with a negative test for 14 days, on the safe side, is a huge mistake. I ask you to consider what you are doing to our children and why. I will close with what Walter Lippmann, a 2-time Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, said, "Where all think alike, no one thinks very much." I encourage you all to stop thinking alike and take a stand for our children. It's what we elected you to do. Stop keeping them out of school, stop distancing and masking them, do some diving into the actual science. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. If I could just ask our superintendent, we have to follow the state and the county medical guidelines, don't we?
Unfortunately, we have to follow CDPH's guidelines, and the 7 days, the shortened time, is that we have to guarantee 6-foot distance between students, and because we do not do that, we stick to the 14 days. We are not the only district in Placer County that does it. There are other districts in Placer County that do it as well. So we would be happy to remove these masks once CDPH lets us know to do so.
I just would appreciate it. I understand that. But actually looking at the science, because all of that, and I understand where you're coming from, but the science of 18 months doesn't back that up.
Again, we have to follow CDPH guidelines.
You really don't.
Yes, we do.
No, you don't. You can stand up for our children.
Thank you, Ann. And next speaker, Teresa Epilito. Nice to see you, Teresa.
Hi. So I'm just going to quickly talk about what the past year has looked like. Let's start with last spring when schools first closed down. I found myself at home with a soon-to-be college graduate, a college freshman, 2 high school freshmen, and a husband who worked from home, all living and working in a place we called home, a home without internet. Talk about a challenge. I became an expert on creating assignments in Google Classroom, converting lessons into digital format, uploading grades from Google into Aries. The transition from digital into a digital classroom showed me that even though students were provided technology and internet access, many did not know how to use that technology. I found myself spending lots of time trying to help students access assignments in Google Classroom and using Aries. Every day I was adapting to meet the academic and social emotional needs of my students and my family. Throughout it all, I showed up and taught every single day. Fast forward to fall 2020, I met my students and gave them the necessary supplies needed for learning from home in the parking lot of ACMS as families drove through in their cars. This was a first. I chose to teach from my classroom and was appreciative of all the technology TTUSD made available to ease the transition to remote learning. Being an old-timer meant that new classroom technology was a challenge, but I learned and adapted. Making connections was difficult when few students showed their faces in my Google Meets. I spent hours every week meeting with my colleagues and planning digital lessons. Correcting online papers and entering scores in Aries was quite time-consuming. Just as I was getting into the groove, we got word that students would be returning to school with the hybrid model. Great. Couldn't wait to have my kids physically in the classroom. However, this also meant adapting again and learning how to teach to students at home and in the classroom at the same time. Extra work, extra time. This lasted for several weeks, then we were back to distance learning. More change, more adapting. Throughout it all, I showed up and taught every single day. The beginning of 2021 looked promising. Students would be returning to the classroom. But at the end of January, 5 out of 6 members of my family tested positive for COVID. I was not allowed to be on campus when students returned. I was told to make lesson plans for the days I would be out. I dutifully spent an entire weekend getting my lessons online, making answer keys for the substitute teacher, and putting assignments into Aries so grades would not be hindered. As luck would have it, there was no substitute available to cover my classes. So I showed up online and taught every single day. Since February break, things have settled into place. I continue to record and post all my math and science lessons in Google Classroom. I upload my answer keys, I post assignments online, I keep Aries updated, I send home weekly missing report assignments, and weekly progress reports. I have daily office hours, have students staying after school for help, provide snacks to students who need it. This is my job. This is my passion. I just want you to know teachers are working hard to teach. We're also addressing the social and emotional needs and safety concerns of our students. But this is taking an emotional toll on us. We are exhausted, yet we show up and teach every single day. Oh, look at that. Talk about planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Are there any other public comments? No. Okay.
Can I interrupt just quickly? I have to apologize that I got some family news, so I had to make a little change. So I do have a dog with me because I have to leave right from here to go to the bay. So I started late.
Clerk Larson, or Trustee Larson, excuse me. We do have some call-in comments. That said, we don't know exactly what item they're on, so I'm not sure if you want to do those now or wait until after the in-person on the, they could be more general, I'm just not sure. We could just go ahead and do them now?
Yes, let's do
Okay.
them now.
I apologize for that.
How many are there, Ed? 2?
14. There are 14 comments.
If they end up being of one of our topics, stop it.
Sounds good.
I am a local taxpayer. I live near the high school, and I see how difficult it is for the teachers to actually afford to live at North Lake Tahoe, especially in the Tahoe City.
That's probably closed session.
I am a local taxpayer in Tahoe City. I live near the high school, and I pay a lot in taxes, and I see the trouble and the pain that our local teachers are going through trying to keep their housing.
Can you turn on your mic just for the people at home, Galen, and then and let me know like you were
Yep,
doing. Thank
okay.
you.
This is Mark Christensen. My wife and I are full-time locals of Tahoe City and full-time taxpayers. We wish to support the teachers. This is Mark Christensen. My wife and I are.
Hello, my name is Jessie Ernst, and I'm a teacher at North Tahoe High School. I've been a teacher in TTUSD for 8 years, and this is the first year I've ever felt the need to make a public comment at a school board meeting. And this is my second time making public comment this year, if that tells you anything. I'm here to tell you what it felt like to be a teacher at TTUSD this year, and wow, where do I even start? This year, I felt much like a pinball with little control of where I'll land. Switching from distance learning to in-person to distance learning to in-person, it was nearly impossible to establish routine and expectations with my students. Can you imagine teaching physical education from a screen? I couldn't either, but I did it. Do you know how hard it is to get teenagers to work out first thing in the morning at school? Now imagine they were at home and had literally just rolled over in their bed and turned their screens on. I could have easily just had my students log off and complete a spreadsheet fitness log, but I didn't. I got up and worked out with them from my bedroom, because how could I expect my kids to step up and exercise if I wasn't? I wanted them to wake up, exercise for their own mental health so that they could succeed in all their other classes. When we got back in person, things didn't get much easier. We were not allowed to share equipment, and my classes were cut by more than a half in cohorts. I had PE class with 6 kids in it, only 6 kids. I had to completely change my curriculum to equipment-free and still somehow had to motivate these kids to be active. I also never knew how many kids I would actually have on a given day, so I had a lesson plan, a backup lesson plan, and a backup to the backup lesson plan every day. I've never worked harder in my life. This is after I volunteered my entire summer, for the 5th summer in a row, to run the mountain bike program. Being the only sports program allowed to run, our numbers exploded to more than 60 kids. And I do have to give a shout out to Dee Driller and Jeff Santos, who both came out last summer and helped coach. Thank you guys so much. I hope you come back. Needless to say, I went into the school year exhausted, and it never ended. Oh, and I still somehow coached the snowboard team this year, too. So I was the one lucky coach who never got a COVID break in seasons. I still stepped up and ran my programs, I ran my classes, and I ran them all well because I love my kids. I'm tired of volunteering hundreds of hours of my time with little or no stipend. I do get one stipend for the snowboard team, but it's not a varsity stipend. I coach all year. I give so much, and I'm so saddened that our district cannot agree to pay teachers what they deserve when we all give this much. We are not martyrs. We're college-educated individuals who are undervalued with a district who does not appreciate us enough to pay us what we deserve. So here I am, going to my 6th season volunteering to run the mountain bike program from now until October with no steam and no motivation after the worst year ever. Oh, and I'm losing my rental home with everyone else to top it off. So that's how I feel this year, being a teacher in TTUSD.
Hello, I am a retiring teacher from TK at Glenshire Elementary this year, and I have a concern that these negotiations are going to...
Hello, my name is Jessie Ernst, and I'm a teacher at North Tahoe High School. I've been a teacher in TTUSD for 8 years, and this is the first year that I've ever felt the need to make a public comment at a school board meeting, and this is my 2nd time making public comment this year. If that's
Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Bushway-Verkler, and I'm the STEAM teacher at North Tahoe School. I'm calling today during my 30-minute lunch break instead of in person because I recently learned that today's special meeting is taking place at 3 p.m. I'm not sure how many of my TTUSD colleagues are available to give public comments during this time, nor how many members of our community are actually available to attend this meeting. I find this time change to be perplexing. Over the Memorial Day weekend, I was able to take some time to reflect upon this school year. In my 29 years of teaching, never have I been pulled in so many different directions, asked to teach in so many different environments under such constraints, particularly under so much stress, frustration, and confusion. This global pandemic has posed its own challenges in our personal lives, but when one is a teacher, one naturally takes on the stress and needs of their students. On top of being concerned about my students' social emotional needs, I had to think about my own children's needs. My son is a senior, and my daughter is a freshman at North Tahoe High School. Oh yeah, that's right. I also need to think about my spouse's needs and to make sure that I myself am truly taking care of myself professionally and personally. With all that, I'm also dealing with the stress that was put upon us here at North Tahoe School on March 2nd during a global pandemic. The staff at North Tahoe School was informed that the 5th grade students would not be part of our school community next year. It was decided that they were going to be located at the 2 Lakeside elementary schools starting the fall of 2021, and that the current 5th grade teachers and others were going to be involuntarily transferred. Yes, without conversation with the teachers, without conversation from all parents involved, without a survey, without a task force to look at the pros and the cons, a decision was made. It was a decision that was thrown upon our school community without any forethought about the impacts and how they would drastically change and affect the school. I've always taught in a collaborative environment where all ideas were put on the table, the pros and cons were looked at, and the key stakeholders had a say. I teach in the classroom where the 4 C's of 21st century skills, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication, at the forefront of my instruction. Not really sure where these practices are no longer, nor why these practices are no longer found to be important in this district. I'm frustrated with the sudden change of ways things are handled and how, quite honestly, I don't like it. I used to be happy with my work environment as it was welcoming and inclusive. I no longer feel that way about my job, nor my employer. I no longer feel that I have a say in what matters. So, as a teacher who was taught in several schools during my 21 years at in the Tahoe-Truckee Unified School District, and reflecting upon this past year, I'm sad, I'm frustrated, I'm dismayed, and quite honestly, I'm extremely angry. I'm really frustrated with the way this year is ending and the way that our school district is changing. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Haley Dow, and I'm calling about the meeting this evening. I know that there is a fight for the cost of living adjustment for the
Hello, board members and Superintendent Geisels. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my feelings about the current state of education and specifically the district-teacher relationship in TTUSD. We all know what a challenging, bizarre year it has been.
I would like to share what it's like to be a teacher this year in the TTUSD school district. The year started with uncertainty and the need to stay remote, and for me this meant reworking lessons for 3 different classes, converting paper to digital, developing new ideas, coming up with ways to get kids engaged on screens, redesigning tests to be used in the online world. And then, almost immediately it began. Silent students, cameras off, missing work, and numerous student and parent meetings to deal with distance learning, cheating on tests, and other assignments. In October, we had a frantic push to reopen with a fixed date before measures were fully in place. Lesson plans again needed to be changed to support a hybrid model. And at Truckee High School, the transition occurred to hybrid right at the end of a grading period. That meant kids coming back to school, nervous, excited, scared, concerned with desk shields, no hall passes, no eating or drinking in the rooms, and oh yeah, take this midterm exam now, please. 3 weeks later, we were unsurprisingly back to full distance learning, which meant another shuffling of priorities and pressures. In the second semester, we started with all new classes at Truckee High School, and again a new schedule, back to hybrid, and again that meant reworking lesson plans and developing them for the new classes. Finally, the vaccine was delivered, which definitely helps alleviate the stress, but then we went back to another 5-day switch, which meant some more reworking of plans. Most teachers I know have put in so much time and effort this year. Each day has been challenging, demanding, frustrating, and with a lot less of the rewarding aspects that normally come with teaching. Despite what some might think, this has not been easier than other years. And now with snow days gone, we don't even get a one-day breather anymore. And then you have community members saying things like, well, you know, teaching, it doesn't pay that well. You had a choice, as if that should make me feel better. I did have a choice, and I chose a job that has real value and meaning. We as educators deserve more than a few thank you emails and some minor appreciation gifts during the first week of May. We deserve to be treated with respect as professionals, and unfortunately that is not what district leadership and the board seem interested in doing, and frankly, it's been demoralizing the entire year. That is what it's like being a teacher in the Tahoe-Truckee Unified School District this year.
Afternoon. My name's Erin Lefevre, an English teacher at North Tahoe High School and the TTEA secretary. I'm calling in today to express how deeply upsetting this year has been in regards to the treatment of teachers. Back in 2008 and 2009, the relationship between the board and the district admin and teachers was very tenuous and unproductive for the common goal we all have, to educate the youth of the community as best as we can. This year matches that year. The district risks the lives of not only the teachers, but also students and other staff members by having us return to the classroom prior to being vaccinated, way ahead of the majority of California. Why? Because of money. There was a price on our heads. Money was more important than the safety of the people in the buildings. I expressed my feelings at the time, but felt like I was wasting the time of the board, and I was getting in the way of the money that was coming in. The crowning moment of this year was teacher appreciation. While my principal and PTO put on a wonderful experience for us, and we at North Tahoe felt greatly appreciated, I attended the board meeting that night, only to have Ms. Geisels read the state-mandated Day of Teacher, and that was it. There was no mention by her or any of the board members about what they appreciated about teachers at TTUSD. For all other appreciation days and weeks, the board members and district admin gushed about them, and it was well-deserved. But so was some gushing about teachers. We are in the trenches fulfilling the goal of educating the students at TTUSD, and I know we are all doing a job worthy of some appreciation by the board and by the district administration. Who are the best recruiters for new teachers for TTUSD? The current ones. And how are we to sell working at TTUSD when we are treated like vermin? Thank you.
Hello. My name is Jeff Ream, and I work at North Tahoe High School as a school counselor. I'm calling today to share a few thoughts on the past year and a half working as an educator. As a school counselor, so much of what we do depends on the personal interactions with our students. I'm pretty sharp with technology, but losing the regular and simpler access to students as well as the severely decreased level of engagement most prominent during our digital and hybrid instructional times, was fairly defeating. We, like most educators, lost a big part of the personal component of educating. I met with ethereal voices out of a computer while looking at a blank ceiling, wall, or avatar. These interactions really impacted the way I can read the room and guide a potentially tough conversation by understanding facial expressions and body language. Knowing when to talk or when to listen, knowing when to push or knowing when to allow space. Assuming positive intent around the current negotiations has also left me wondering if there's a disconnect in being able to read the room. It feels that after a year like this that we've all endured, and the rising impacts that living and working in our community has had on our staff, it feels a bit like our facial expressions and body language are not able to be read. In addition, I now also have a whole new feeling around the word pivot, up there with moist and dollop. The definition of pivot is an adjustment or modification made in order to adapt or improve. Some industries are more adept at the need to pivot regularly. Education is not generally considered one of those industries, and yet we have pivoted more than a handful of times and with very little notice. While I felt the impact as a school counselor, I know it caused my teaching colleagues far greater stress and reconfiguring while they once again adapted to the new normal. With all the pivoting that has been happening, I hope that we as a district can also pivot to adapt to our new living situations in the area and the costs associated with it, and improve to attract and retain the high-quality educators our students deserve, and I believe that our district can afford. Thank you.
That's all the public comments
Thank you.
that are not on the agenda.
And we don't have any more outside. Great. Okay, let's move on to educational services. Superintendent Geisels.
Yes, today we have this afternoon, and the reason for this special board meeting on June 1 is we have to have it approved by the board on or before June 1st to send it off to the California Department of Education. So we worked on the draft based on the input that you had, and we have just a few changes that we want to be able to acknowledge, and Ms. Simpson is going to be able to talk through that really quickly.
Yes, so the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, just a quick reminder, there's 4 major components to this plan, and we have until today to approve it, and we brought it at the last board meeting in detail and presented. And so the 4 specific areas that, number 1, stakeholders are involved. We had 31 total meetings across the district involving parents and teachers and staff. We took that data and formulated it into trends that connected with the, I'm going to say the requirements or the guidance from the plan. The second component was that we needed to describe the way that we would identify students, which we did. And then the third part was to show how we're going to communicate effectively to our parents and guardians the different opportunities that we will be putting together for students starting this summer. And then the fourth part was the plan. So in the document that you have, the revised version, there are 3 specific areas that have been adjusted or added. So on page 8, you'll see about, I'm going to say a little bit more than halfway down, a little asterisk. What we did there was we received feedback that the letters training program for reading, literacy, and language may not necessarily be a fit for the primary grades of the two-way immersion program. So we put some language in there to make sure that we are researching that more and figuring out what the better fit might be, if indeed that's where we end up going. And then on page 11, you'll see another asterisk where all the planned expenditures have all been entered. And you'll remember from the last board meeting that you had a separate document that outlined all that information. Todd Rivera he and his staff were able to finalize that and get that information in here, as well as on page 12, we needed to provide a description of how these grant funds would be coordinated with other elementary, secondary school emergency relief funds. So Mr. Rivera put a statement in there to show, to describe a little bit about how those will be all leveraged to improve outcomes for our students. And it's being brought today for approval. If there's any questions?
Do you have a comment? Any questions about this from the board?
No, thank you for finishing up the document. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and we all got to see it and digest it last meeting as well, so thank you.
You're welcome.
There are some comments.
No, actually, Trustee Larson, they all changed their comments.
That's right, they all changed. So there are no public comments on this topic. So can I bring it back to the board for a motion or any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the expanded learning opportunities grant plan.
I'll second.
All in favor, roll call.
Chris?
President Surek?
Yes.
Clerk Larson?
Yes.
Trustee Driller?
Aye.
Member Hennessy?
Aye.
Member Levac?
Aye.
Thank you.
Passed. Thank you. Thank you, Val. So now we're going to go to closed session, but before closed session, we have public comments on our closed session agenda topic, which is labor negotiations. And we have... They're all in order, so this will all end in order. Okay, the first one is Mr. Stakely.
Before my time begins, I wanted to address a point of order. We asked this last week that TTA be given an agenda item to present a board report, and were denied. And because we typically do that on the first meeting of every month, and it's been so for the last 20 years, I would love to present the entirety of the TTA board report to the meeting right now. And in board bylaws CF 9130, quote, with board consent, the board may increase or decrease the amount of time for public presentation. So do I have the consent of the board to present this TTA report to you uninterrupted?
No.
Okay. So I have a printed copy for you here. I'll simply present you with the written copy. I know you take your board obligations seriously, and I'm sure you'll read it. That's it.
Thank you, Dan.
Clerk Larson, this is Kim Zurich. If I may,
Yes, Kim, go
just
ahead.
clarify that the TTEA did make that request, and Superintendent Geisel's clarified that it's the first regular board meeting of the month at which both of our groups are allotted time on our board agenda to make their comments. And so they will be able to make their comments at our first regularly scheduled board meeting this month. It just so happens that that is, I believe, the 16th this month.
Thank you. So now we're going into closed session, but first we'll see if there are any public comments on the closed session agenda item, which is labor negotiations.
I think they all withdrew their comments.
They all withdrew.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what's happening at the end of the table.
So there were 7 public comments for negotiations, Trustee Hennessy, and they have decided not to speak. So right now, then what Mr. Hilton is going to do is play any phone call comments that we may have missed.
Okay, so the folks out there have decided not
Yes.
to step to the podium.
Ms. Epilito
Yeah.
is double checking. Okay, so now we have
Okay,
the phone
Mr.
call
Hilton?
comments.
Yes.
You'll start with the ones that we terminated earlier.
That's correct. The ones that were skipped because they were on items on the agenda.
Thanks.
We will play those now.
I am a local taxpayer. I live near the high school, and I see how difficult it is for the teachers to actually afford to live at North Lake Tahoe, especially in the Tahoe City area. And since I pay a lot of money in taxes, I wish that money to go to the local teachers to keep them local. Please respect them and give them the raise that they are asking for. Thank you. I am a local taxpayer in Tahoe City. This is Mark Christensen. My wife and I are full-time locals of Tahoe City, and
Trustee Larson, these all appear to be repeats, so we'll move on to the next one.
Hello, my name is Jessie Ernst, and I'm a teacher at North Tahoe High School. I've been a teacher in TTUSD for 8 years, and this is the first year I've ever felt the need to make a public comment at a school board meeting. And this is my second time making public comment this year, if that tells you anything. I'm here to tell you what it felt like.
Hello, I am a retiring teacher from TK at Glenshire Elementary this year, and I have a concern that these negotiations are going to be not handled until the end of the school year, and possibly any settlement would be not retroactive. My comment is that I would love to point out what a huge year this was, as well as the end of last year, what a learning curve that we had to go to as educators, how we had to take so many risks with the whole situation as it was, with kids not being vaccinated, concerns that we had. I would feel very slighted if there was an agreement reached that didn't include retroactive pay for this year. Please consider your retirees and all of your teachers that have worked so hard for this year that we are in right now. Thank you.
Just a reminder, you may have heard the first few seconds of these so they may sound somewhat familiar, but we want to play the whole comment.
Hi, my name is Haley Dow, and I'm calling about the meeting this evening. I know that there is a fight for the cost of living adjustment for the teachers based on property taxes that comes up in July, and I am for the cost of living adjustment for the teachers. I have grown up in this community, and it used to be that everybody a teacher was the best job to have in town, or you worked at the hospital. And I know many, many teachers, including family members, who are being priced out. It is extremely expensive to live here, and that's the reason all the property taxes are so high, because it's such a high cost of living. So the small adjustment that I know the school board has in its funding should be a no-brainer, that all these teachers who have done amazing job through COVID the past year and have managed to make it and are still here. We need our teachers to live in our community. If our teachers don't live here, we're not going to have a community. They bring it together, and a parent of two, I would be extremely disappointed to learn that teachers had to move out of the area and either commute or that we lose our valuable, wonderful teachers we have. So please vote for the cost of living adjustment for the teachers. Thank you.
Hello, board members and Superintendent Geisels. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my feelings about the current state of education and specifically the district-teacher relationship in TTUSD. We all know what a challenging, bizarre year it has been. COVID made life tough for everyone in a unique way. Some parents lost their jobs. Others kept theirs, yet had to adjust to working and teaching their kids at home at the same time. Stress seemed to hover over communities, between friendships, and especially clouding the once positive and productive machine we call education. As teachers, we have learned through education programs, professional development courses, internships, and collective years of experience with students that easing stress and pressure in the classroom is achieved by promoting self-esteem, confidence, and positive reinforcement. Teachers also know that supporting kids this way requires more than just words of praise. All humans, in fact, react to showing, not just telling. So if we equate a student's achievement, a progress report, a trophy in the hallway cabinet, or stars on a wall, some tangible notice of you did it, or you are important, to a cost of living adjustment for teachers, it would be obvious that you would want to show us our value, not just tell us. The most concerning aspect of the outcome of this past year is the ever-growing rift between the board district and the teachers. What's worse, the rift has seemed to grow through communities, pitting neighbor against neighbor. The negotiations have only worsened how our educational system here in TTUSD is perceived. The fact that these negotiations are continuing only drains teacher and student spirits and makes education itself seem less of a priority. I humbly ask that you show teachers their value, help end these negotiations, and get our once solid reputation, board, district members, and teachers alike, back on track. Thank you so much for taking my call.
That concludes the call-in public comment.
And are there any from the public, Joan? Okay, then we will adjourn to closed session.